nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Oak?
Here.
Mr. Beistel? Mr. Calero? Mrs. Love?
Here.
Mr. Miller? Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Here.
Mrs. Shipley?
Here.
Mr. Benz?
Here. 8 present.
Let the record show that Mr. Beistel telephoned earlier and is not feeling well this evening.
Citizens' comments.
Catherine Fike.
Looking at the present Southmoreland School District organizational chart, it clearly shows that across the top is the Board of Education, and below that is the superintendent. At the previous meeting, in response to questions submitted by a school director in writing, a process repeatedly praised by him, I was shocked when I heard the superintendent respond, "I can't answer these. It's too labor intensive." Board members jumped in to loudly cheer this statement as being absolutely the case. Well, let's see. Southmoreland School District has less than 2,000 students and has at its head a superintendent at an annual cost of salary and benefits about $200,000 a year. To administratively assist him, he has the following: a full-time assistant superintendent, a full-time business manager, a full-time primary school principal who also handles special ed, a full-time elementary principal, a full-time middle school principal, a full-time high school principal, a full-time assistant high school principal, a full-time athletic director and director of transportation, a full-time director of buildings and grounds, a full-time technology manager, a full-time director of food service, and a solicitor at his beck and call. I asked Mr. Ault to tell me one of the questions that he asked, and it was, how much do we owe on our buildings? What is our mortgage? After our fancy dancing refinancing that made a lot of people rich, what is that number? Every board member should have that answer at his or her fingertips. The superintendent should not have to look it up. It should be something he absolutely knows. If I were to go around this board tonight, I'd be willing to bet not one of these board members has any idea. That answer has to be somewhere in the vicinity of $40 million. Now, I'm sure that the superintendent is sitting there feeling as though I'm attacking him because he has too much intensive labor to respond to a school board member's questions. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Any superintendent in his position would do exactly the same thing. 7 school directors have rolled over and given him complete control of the board. Why shouldn't he thumb his nose at their requests? He does not report to the board reports to him. Be that as it may, this board has one critical, ethical, moral, and I believe legal responsibility to revise the district organizational chart to clearly show to everyone that the superintendent comes first, and below that is the Board of Education. Furthermore, I recommended that the board members who feel that the superintendent is overworked should volunteer to come in and do this research themselves, and then they can give us all the answers and the information that we request. So I'm sure you're all sitting there saying, why does she care? What's it to her? Well, I'm going to tell you the answer is very clear. You were elected to represent us. The fact that you now report to an unelected official, an unelected person, means that we no longer have that representation. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you have a very, very serious problem in a school district that has run amok. That problem is not intensive labor.
Thank you, Dr. Fike.
Minutes.
At next week's meeting, you'll be asked to approve the minutes of the September 4 and 11 meetings.
Any questions? Hearing none. Finance?
You'll also be asked to approve the August 2014 Treasurer's Report and financial reports.
Questions there? Hearing none. Discussion? Academic performance?
First item under discussion, our intent this evening was to provide you with an update on the district's academic performance. We received an email yesterday from the Pennsylvania Department of Education indicating that the information we received from them on our performance may not be accurate, ours along with many other districts in the state. So we are going to wait until we have accurate information, and then we will provide you with that State of the School's academic report. Hopefully that will be soon.
School violence and safety?
We're going to dovetail these two items. Dr. Scott is working on a school safety grant, and I've asked him to talk to you a little bit about the nature of that grant and some of the statistics that he's using to go into that grant in terms of what we're able to purchase and the information we're being asked. So, Dr. Scott?
Thank you. The Office of Safe Schools and the Department of Ed has just released a grant opportunity, competitive grant opportunity of up to $25,000 for equipment. And obviously, part of the grant, you have to establish a need. So as part of that, and something I put at your desk prior to the meeting, is a Safe Schools County report that shows incidents of student misconduct across the county, and then columns were added to that to show Southmoreland High School for 2012-13 and 13-14. In working with the principals and John Pushkar, with $25,000, it's a lot of money on one hand. On another hand, it gets spent very quickly. If we are able to get the grant, we've decided that the best place for us to put it is into surveillance equipment at both the middle school, elementary campus, and at the high school. I think the way we have it written up now, there'd be 32 essentially cameras added to this campus and 30 added at the high school, and really for a threefold purpose. First is that there are present locations that no longer work. Cameras are, from the high school from 1999, old equipment doesn't work anymore. So that's one reason for requesting the grant. Secondly, when both of these schools were built, as you go through, you see domes throughout the facility. More domes were installed in the design than we ever had the funds to equip. So that's at the high school when it was renovated, and here also. So the second part of the surveillance grant would be for the first time to put cameras into those locations that were wired for surveillance and never received it. And then the third part of the grant would be to provide coverage in areas at both campuses that have never had coverage. And that's, and again, in writing the narrative that you have to write for how the grant is going to benefit you, spending this $25,000 on surveillance equipment, I just took the tack of the ability to provide much more coverage and surveillance of areas that don't necessarily have continuous adult supervision. In other words, areas that are outside of the classroom. And that's the rationale that I'm using for the grant. And the grant is due in less than 2 weeks, and we're supposed to know if we get the grant by the 1st of November. And we'll certainly update you on that. I want to thank John also. While I am writing the grant, he's doing the specifications for all the equipment, and he's been very helpful with that.
Mr. Carr has a question.
Dr. Scott, you said you were going to add like 32 cameras?
On this campus and 30 at the high school.
Who monitors those surveillance cameras?
Well, that's a good question. And really, today's technology is wonderful. And maybe John will answer a little bit of this, but whether we don't have someone who has a job to sit in a room and monitor cameras, but with today's technology, you can actually monitor or look for, because you have X number of days. Usually it's maybe up to 2 weeks to go back and look at things that have been reported. And with today's technology, with this new kind of equipment, you'll be able to look at it from home, from your desk computer, from your cell phone, and you'll have that kind of access. And John, I know you've been talking to us about that. If you want to add anything to how we do monitoring.
With the systems that we have in place now, there's even, it depends on how sophisticated you want to get. You can go as far as even face recognition and or activity that you monitor. The camera can detect certain types of activity and you can email you alerts or text you alerts.
I guess one of my question is, it's not the monitoring of current events then. It's more of a documentation of events that have occurred. We're not actually monitoring activity that goes on in places where we don't have teaching going on. You're doing it in hallways and places. So again, and if nobody's monitoring that, and if there's 32 cameras, you've got a lot of information coming in and nobody actually monitoring that. It's more to provide us with information after the fact.
Well, you could also find yourself in an event where you have, say, Newtown. You have an active shooter situation in the building. You can go to one location and be able to visibly look at the entire building all from one location. So if you know you have an incident in place, happening at the moment, you can be centrally located in one place and have eyes on the entire building to be able to monitor a situation like that. There's no way that you're going to be able to 24/7 or during every minute of the school day be able to watch those cameras to see something as it happens.
But even, and I understand that, and I can appreciate that that's not what you want to do, but with that many cameras, you would want at least, or you would expect that someone would be at least viewing those cameras during the course of the day on a regular basis. Obviously not sitting there monitoring everything, but again, like for example, let's use Newtown. After the event occurs, yes, we can now see where it's happening, but that would not have done anything to actually, you'd have to know the event was already in process. So the cameras, again, aren't going to prevent much of anything.
They can't stop anything from happening, in a situation.
Nor would you see it develop because
But it also-
unless someone's monitoring it.
But it also, knowing full well that the cameras are there, if you do something, it's not going to go unnoticed. That's a bit of a deterrent.
You can certainly target certain events, and really, Bob, what we have noticed a lot with these kinds of systems is when principals are in their offices, instead of on their computer going to screensaver, it just goes to, it pulls up, and
And it rotates through all the different cameras.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and also if you have certain events going on, you might want to monitor those specifically. And also, if you look at a lot of these, I thought it was interesting in preparing the grant and trying to establish a need. If you look at all these things that go into that big category of student misconduct, you would hope, certainly unfortunately not in many emotionally charged situations, but in other situations you would hope that when you look down through this list, there would be a preventative aspect to it. If individuals absolutely knew that there was close and extensive coverage of an area, then you would think, unless it was some emotional response that couldn't be controlled, that it would lead to a good decision.
Is there any additional expense besides the grant that we get? Will we bear any expense if you get the grant as far as installing and all of the other things that go with it? What expenses will the school district have?
John, he did a really nice job of specifications to where the grant, he specified equipment for $25,000 and $4. And talked that really because we wanted to emphasize more of the equipment, then more of the installation would fall on him and Steve Smithula.
Between us and the maintenance staff, we can pull wires.
Thank you.
We think it would be a significant upgrade to what we've had, and the technology is changing almost yearly.
More questions or comments?
What's the criteria to grant us this grant?
It-
What do we have to do? What do we have to be?
We have to apply, it's sort of, Office of Safe Schools is making this available to all public and charter schools across the Commonwealth, and you have to throw your hat in the ring with your application.
Well, they all ultimately have to use some criteria. I mean, do we have to be a troubled school or?
Okay, so, no, Ken, but, okay, the criteria then, as I go through the grant, is establishing a need. Why do we need this? What are we going to use it for? How is it going to be maintained? I have to list objectives that we hope to accomplish by having this. So in other words, I would look at our data and said that if we had X number of incidents of student misconduct occurring in these types of areas, then I have to set a target on hopefully reducing that amount and be able to show that like a numeric goal in reducing incidents of student misconduct occurring outside of classroom areas.
As much as it sounds great, I doubt very much if we're going to get it, because the graph that you gave us, or chart here, says we had 9 incidents covering all kind of issues this year so far, and 18 last year. I think we have a pretty safe school by what these reflect. I just hope we get the grant. Thank you.
Question: what is reporting? Not at all to go into the recent incident. That's but to talk about it in general. For example, okay, it's 5 fights are better than 11. 2 would be better than 5. How are those reported?
And that's a good...
And the reason, I say that in part is, and maybe you can just respond to this, kind of anecdotally, people say they fight sometimes at the high school. And I don't know what that means. Does that mean, threatening each other with fists, or does that mean pushing each other around? Or so, just talk a little bit about how are those reported, and because
it's a great question. All of us across the Commonwealth are required to do these reports through the Office of Safe Schools. PD requires it. And just looking at 13-14, you mentioned that fighting 5. And really what that means was 5 total students, not 5 fights. I don't know how, usually I can deal with an even number better, but somehow an odd number got in there. But in the handbook, we have a definition of what a fight is, dealing with a mutual aggression where both parties contribute to it, not like an assault situation where one student is doing something to another student who wanted no part of it. So there is a definition that goes with it. And then you have to set the bar on what's reportable. And for us, it's always been, again, 2 parties, mutual consent to engage in this behavior, and they throw punches that land. So if it's a pushing, shoving, it could go down to a smaller offense of physical altercation or something like that. But having said that, as we all know, in any school across the country, there could have been, we have 5. What about all the things that occurred that either never got reported or were never seen by anybody? So the number could have been 20. And then the other factor as far as reporting goes, and I hope that, and I really believe that we do it with fidelity, is we let the chips fall where they may. If 2 kids get into it and they throw punches and land, that's a fight, and it's going to get treated as such through the student code of conduct, and it's going to get reported. How other schools do it, you can look at what you might think, if you look at these reports, some pretty persistently dangerous schools, that when you look at their reports, it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of this stuff going on, and maybe it's not. I'm not in their buildings and don't know. But we do report the things that occur. 12-13, there was 11 kids that were charged with fighting. And most of those, again, in all the years I've been involved in this, it's very, very, very seldom that anybody will ever be injured. But if punches land and punches are thrown, hey, that's a fight, and we know it is, and it's going to be treated as such.
Actually, the definitions for each of these categories are consistent across the state. So what we call a fight is also called a fight at York or Mount Pleasant or wherever, because they're very consistent in how they define these. And that consistency began when the Office of Safe Schools began to collect this data maybe 10 or 12 years ago when we first started to report.
And hopefully we all see it the same way in evaluating if it's reportable.
Right.
Any more questions or comments? Moving on, potential donations.
Yeah, Mr. Swink has been contacted by a couple of individuals about some donations. We just wanted to make the board aware of these.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the board and let you know of a couple potential donations that were brought up to me and what they're looking for. The baseball field, I don't know if you guys have been up there, but if you know down the first base line, they have the woods and the hill that goes down over. We lose probably 100 balls a year down there. Plus the fact that the kids are going down over with poison, there's been snakes seen. It's just kind of unsafe. West Penn has offered us up 3 poles that they would set for us along that line for nothing, and then we could put up a net, whenever we had the funds in our budget or whatever as athletics, but we could set a net up there that probably would catch 90% of those balls. And if you look at a dozen baseballs right now, they're running probably $70 a dozen. And when you look at practice, you look at the kids that use that field, I thought it was an opportunity, even if we can't put the nets up right now, if we could get the poles set, have them in place, so when we do have the funds available, and then I just found out that there may be another business in town that's offering up the money or the opportunity to buy the line and the nets for us. Brian Shipley has talked to a couple people, and they're very interested in doing that. So, if that was the case, I think it would be very beneficial for us. It's an opportunity. If you go to a game, you always see our kids running down over the hill trying to collect those balls just because of the cost. And I think it's a better way to keep the kids on the field, not getting down in where there's possible poison and other things. And it would be a good opportunity for us. Now we'll have to have Lee and a couple of us go up there and set the poles where we, safely put them and see where they'll fit best for the field. But I think what they were looking for is they wanted a time to get it going here, and I told them I had to address you guys first because they want to get it before the weather starts changing. Obviously, once that field gets soft, to get a truck back in there would be tough. So that's why I kind of addressed you with that tonight. Like I said, if we can get the other business, it may cost us nothing to have that net put up. The second one was with the Sam Hicks Foundation. I think you guys all are aware of that. Maybe it's the local foundation here. They contacted Brian about having some extra money in their funds. They are offering our softball team some softballs, some bats. They're actually giving the girls basketball team some other equipment that they may need. And they've asked me if we could use a scoreboard at the middle school facility. If you go down there and watch our kids play soccer or whatever it may be, if someone comes to visit, they don't know what the score is, they don't know what the time is. If you come in halfway through the game, you're really not sure what's going on. And then I told them, and I've worked with Lee a little bit, some of the issues we got to look at is the electricity and how much it was going to cost us to put something like that in. There is a possibility that we could find scoreboards like we did with the 25-second clocks for a few years that run on battery, that you actually don't need to put any kind of electricity to it, and it's all remote control, which would be a nice feature, I think, for our kids and even the community. If they would come up for our soccer clubs that use the field, at least they'd have the opportunity to have a score and see what time it is. And that, again, is through the Sam Hicks Foundation. They're offering that up. And one of the businesses that were actually asking about the nets for football, or for the baseball, they've saw that in our gym, if you go in there, you see all the kids that have records or all sections. We have everything in there pretty much except softball and baseball. We do have the football and soccer in the stadium, But we really have our baseball. I don't think they have anything there. And the softball is over where a lot of people really can't see who was all sectioned. They've offered up the signs in the gyms that they would pay for those, and we could place them and then just start adding our kids in there. So each year, if they made section, that we could actually recognize them, where people, we get a lot more visitors in the gym and the facility there that they could see the accomplishments. So, as they come, it's all there. It's just, I just want to make sure you were aware. I talked to Dr. Molnar, and that's what we felt, that at least address you guys and know what's out there. And there may be some other ones coming, and I think it's an opportunity that we can get some stuff for our kids that we're not, may not be in the budget that we can afford. Equipment's always good, and anything that can make the game a little safer, like up on the ball field, keeping kids from running down over that hill, and who knows what can happen there.
Any questions there? Joe, that's great.
Just, I know from experience what Charlie was saying, and he's correct that the balls do get down there, and we did have kids when my son played, students, ball players would be going down and collecting the baseballs. My husband even would go down and be going down there for I don't know how long hunting for the ball. So this would be a great asset. I agree.
Some of the kids are down there probably 90% of the game getting balls, foul ball hits there.
Sure.
So, and again, like I said, it's a lot of the cost. You'll go down there and you'll find balls that's been there and they're waterlogged, and you don't realize what a baseball costs. And each one that goes over the hill that you lose is probably $4, $5, $6.
Is it an issue at the softball field too, or what's the situation there down
Softball?
below?
Right now, we don't have anything as far as, it's set up. One thing I was looking at is the fence down there. We had some issues with the way it's set on the hill. And we've had some kids that were chasing fly balls and they hit that hill and their feet go out from under them. And, I had one girl from Salem really hurt her knee. And we measured that field out. And for a legal 200-foot softball field, it would be right at the base of the hill. So, that's another thing we're looking at. We could move a fence, or we can get one of those temporary fences, which actually wouldn't be a bad idea too, because if they did hit the fence, it kind of collapses and it doesn't cause the injuries that way. But I'd like to see that done as well, because I'm afraid one of these days we're going to have somebody get a knee or ankle or something really torn up on that field.
That's good. But I had in mind more, and maybe we don't lose that many, but on the third base side, there's a field there behind there. There are trees, but maybe we don't lose that many balls. I remember we lost some.
In the spring it's not too bad because it's not, most of the time the field's not grown yet. But as it starts growing, one thing that's nice is you can kind of see where they go because it's flat. We don't lose quite as many, but down the road that may be something too that we put along that line. If we can get another few posts, that would stop quite a bit of balls too. But they're a lot easier to find in that field there than they are down in that woods.
Yeah, sure.
Anyone else with questions or comments?
This has nothing to do with this. While we're talking about sports, I just wanted to mention the golf team. Do you want to tell them?
Yeah, our golf team made the playoffs. They'll find out tomorrow where they go. That's the first time in, I think, 25 years. It's been very long. So Gene Spadero and his boys, congratulations to him. That's a great job. Beginning of the year, he was, wondering if they were even going to be very competitive, and the kids stuck together and worked hard, and he said they're a very tight-knit group of boys, and they did very well. So they will play in a playoff. It'll be our first team that made the playoffs this year. Great job to Gene and his assistant.
Maybe we could find out, Charlie, but the year they mentioned was 1995. Maybe we could find out definitively last time the boys
I will find out.
made the
It's been,
playoffs.
Gene, he was like, he couldn't really remember. It's been that long. So I'll look it up and find out what it was. But so tomorrow, obviously, homecoming at the stadium. I've been informed even Channel 4 will be out there tomorrow, so it ought to be an interesting game. You all can come out.
Bring your rain gear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Upcoming
So then we'll put these items on the agenda for the board to formally approve next week. Even though I understand the polls have been delivered as of today.
Upcoming parent public information program.
This is Santamon.
On November 5th, Wednesday, November 5th, from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock, Tara Phillips from Gateway Rehabilitation, Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Center will be coming to present to the public and parents on current trends in drug and alcohol usage, and also specifically looking at teenagers and what to look for. And so I'd like to invite you. We want to invite the public and parents as well. We're going to hold it right here in the middle school cafeteria. She presented to our teachers and to our staff on the last day of the school year, and it was really a tremendous benefit. Great information. We asked her to come back at the beginning of the school year just as a kind of a reminder and to refresh. And then after that, we asked her if she could present to the parents. She did ask for no students, no kids to be at the presentation. She just wants to present to the parents. If there are parents of young children, we will have a program running. We're going to have some high school students running a program out to kind of like a babysitting or so the kids can come and have some fun, but not be involved in the actual program itself.
Tanya, what was the date on that again?
November 5th from 6 to 8. It's a Wednesday. And we'll get the information out to the parents through the schools as well.
And we'll make sure that's on the website as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any questions for Tanya?
They've presented to our, like Tanya said, to our secondary staff, middle, high school, at the end of the school year and then at the beginning of this school year. And they're really doing a nice job. It's really a nice partnership. Really informing and teaching us a lot.
Old business, update on entryways?
Right. We had talked at some length previously about looking at our entryways at the two schools that don't have what we call the mousetrap entries. And we were finally able to get together with our architect and have him present a proposal for those two items. As the administrative team and I looked over the proposal, we would like to direct your attention away from the primary center entrance only to the high school entrance. We thought that the proposal that was given to us for the primary center entrance was a lot more money than we were willing to spend on such a project, and we believe that there's a much more cost-effective way to accomplish the same thing. So if I could draw your attention to page 2, the high school entrance, what we'd like to talk about doing there is to provide a secure vestibule at the main entry to the building so that visitors not only have to communicate with the office staff before they come in, but are actually routed through the office and have to sign in a secure area before they have access to the building. And the way that would work, the existing main entrance door opens directly into the lobby. They would erect a wall that is matching the architecture of the building just beyond the office door, and that wall would have locking doors similar to what we have here in the middle school and over at SES, and then everyone would be routed through the office. And then there would also be some signage and things of that nature to make it code compliant with access, door locks and fobs and all of those kinds of things. And if you look at the next page, page 3, and again, I'll call your attention to estimated costs, high school entrance only. That's all we want to look at this evening. New aluminum entrance doors, $5,000. That would be 2 of those for $10,000. Framing would be $15,600. Ceilings and bulkheads at $3,000. A 5% contingency of $1,500 for a total cost of $30,100. And the professional architect's fee for drawing the plans and making sure that everything's installed correctly would be $3,000. So we would entertain some discussion on that this evening. We think it's something that should be done. The high school is probably one of the most vulnerable areas in our school just because of the age of the students that are there. And we would like to provide a more secure entryway for them. We would open that to discussion.
Mr. Alt?
Yes, I see we're kind of automatically going to Eccles again.
We're not putting this out for bid, or have we put it out for bid and they were the lowest?
We have not put it out for bid, Mr. Hall.
Don't we think we should?
If that's the wish of the board, we can put it out for bid.
Sure they will take that under advisement.
For what, design phase or what?
Well, for the whole project.
That's their estimate. They're not doing construction work, they're just designing.
Yeah, they just gave us an estimate at this point in time, and then they would do the design for $3,000. Would be their fee.
No, I'm kind of lost here. What are all the numbers for?
Well, we would.
The actual doors?
We would obviously bid the materials and everything, and whatever contractor bids the lowest bid, that's Echo's estimate. They provided us with an estimate, and their proposal here was at no cost to the district. And if they were to do the design for us, their fee would be 10% of the total cost, which is a standard architect's fee.
But this is the total cost of the material and the installation?
That's the whole project, yes.
$3,300.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But we're not putting any of that out for bid?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If the board has interest in doing this.
Oh, okay.
Right now, we just have Eccles' proposal.
Okay, okay.
You know, on how they would design it, so yes.
Yeah, I think we need something,
The
so
project would be
absolutely.
bid. I don't know that I'd recommend for something this small, going through a whole RFP, to try and find an architect, because, again, the architect fee is about $3,000, you know. The project itself would be bid via contractors, yes.
Okay.
More questions, comments?
Soon would we be working on a project like this? I guess that would depend on how soon we would get something and we'd decide if we wanted to do it and vote on it and so forth.
When we spoke with Mark toward the beginning of the school year, he indicated that if the board were to approve such a thing either in September or October, and we didn't get this estimate until September 17th, so it's obviously an October vote. He thought that it could occur during the Christmas break and then be done when the students come back, provided that we can get all the specs out to bid in a timely fashion. There are certain rules and regulations as to what our time limits are there.
That's good.
Well,
Yeah, Mike, going back to what Dr. Scott said about the school safety grant, should we get that, I'd rather see us use that money to pay for this, as this is much more important, I think, than having 30 or 62 cameras that report after the fact.
Ken,
Yeah,
that's
it.
something that we thought of as well.
It's a wonderful
We thought that was
point,
a grand idea. Unfortunately, the school safety grant doesn't allow you to modify your building and build. Because when we saw that, well, our eyes got, we thought the same thing. And there's a stipulation in the grant that it has to be equipment, it cannot be building modification. They'll give you money, Ken, but then they tell you how to spend it. You can't decide on your own.
Anyone else?
Just concerned that I think by recommending the high school that we're not dropping doing something at the primary center, it would seem to me we'd want to do something, it has to be some kind of a simple solution there short of...
Discussions of that administratively, we think we can do that for a very minimal cost. And once we flesh out those discussions, we'll bring that idea back to you as well. Maybe it was not involved. Since you brought the primary center up, what their proposal was in order to route visitors through the office, the administrative office would be relocated where the nursing and guidance are, and the nursing and guidance would then go back to where administration is. That would involve making restrooms ADA compliant. It would involve moving the alarm system that was just repaired and updated. It would involve putting a surveillance window in the wall. So it was just a much bigger project. We think we can do it for a lot less money without doing all of those things and accomplish the same purpose.
That's good.
Anyone else with questions or comments?
But then we'll ask you to approve that us to proceed with that project then at the voting meeting.
New business, employee drug, alcohol, substance abuse testing policy?
Yes, our workplace safety committee, we had a subcommittee with myself, Mrs. Huggins, representative from the cafeteria, and one of our nurses. And we looked at a policy for drug, alcohol, and substance abuse testing. And the idea there was, again, to make our workplace safer in two ways. And basically, what this policy would call for, calls for pre-employment screening for potential employees. We have no policy in place that permits us to do that right now. It permits employees who feel that they have a dependency to self-report and seek treatment with no penalties, so long as they're able to do that. And the other thing it does is it gives the district the right to demand that an employee be tested for being under the influence of drugs or alcohol when the supervisor has a reasonable cause to do that. For example, if you see someone who appears to have their eyes glazed over, they're not making sense when they talk, the amount of work they're able to produce in a classified situation diminishes substantially, staggering, anything like that. And then that would trigger a test. That test would be conducted by an independent lab. All the security and record-keeping arrangements that are outlined in the policy would also be in place. So, reading through that policy, if it's a policy that you would like to see in place, we would ask you to post it for a 30-day period at the next meeting, which would provide time for board input, solicitor input, and discussion and review before it's adopted. Questions or comments?
It doesn't address the abuse of prescription drugs in there. I didn't see it specifically addressed, and that certainly is an issue of abuse of drugs, but it's not illegal drugs, it's not alcohol, but it's prescription drugs. And I didn't specifically see that noted in there. I don't know where that would fall under, or if that would be an issue that we would have to. Did I miss it, or is it?
Well,
I don't, and obviously, again, if it's prescription drugs, and it's going to be a touchier situation when you're dealing with abuse of that, because they are prescribed, and determining whether someone is under the influence of a prescribed drug and using it illegally or excessively would be more.
That's somewhat addressed on page 2, drug or controlled substance. So a prescription drug would fall into that category. But having said that, someone who has a doctor's prescription and someone who might keep them drowsy or whatever,
Right.
that would certainly be addressed.
But you'd fall into that. Okay, I just want to make.
Take another look at this and see that that's addressed. That's a good point. Thank you.
The other question I had was, it says here that in order to determine that a person is under the influence, that it has to be observed by either a licensed physician or a registered nurse. When you're on school property, that's probably not hard to do. You could bring a nurse over. You'd be able to bring someone that's a medical professional. If you're off school property, though, you couldn't even confront. For example, if it was a coach that had some alcohol before the game, and they're at a game and they're, I won't say intoxicated, but they're over the legal limit that we're talking about that you're allowed to have and not be considered under the influence. We don't have a lot. What do we do for that type of situation? I said, when it's on school property, I can see that, but a lot of situations would occur where we're dealing with chaperones, coaches, off school property where there's no nurse, there's no doctor, and they're the only ones that can certify so that we can have them brought in for testing. We're kind of we can't take any action at all then. We're just stuck with hoping when they would come back that we would then call somebody and have them come in, because the observation has to be made by them. Is that not correct?
Yes. That's something we can look at as well. Good points.
Does the policy address a definitive endpoint at which if someone doesn't want to be rehabilitated or can't be rehabilitated, that there are a certain amount of breaks they get, and then there is a termination point? because policy does no good if you don't have something to ultimately deal with it.
I think that was in here, and I'm looking for where it is, Ken.
Okay,
But I'm pretty sure that we did put
Okay.
something in there.
But that was the
Page 7 and 9, part of the test results.
kind of talked about this.
Yeah, page 7, thank you. My positive test, drug or alcohol test results shall subject the employee to the disciplinary provision of the district policy. So then we go back to the drug and alcohol policy, which we made agreements as well for the employees. Anyone else have questions on it?
it's near. I was wondering where everybody was at.
We have to
Okay.
look.
Seeing none, mission, vision, and goal.
Bob, excuse me, you made a point, off campus, and you made one other point.
No, I was basically concerned with off-campus chaperones, and I
I
talked
thought
about
you
chaperones.
made a point before that, prescription.
Oh, the one before that was,
prescription drugs.
yeah, prescription drugs. Abuse of prescription drugs.
Excuse me, when you mentioned this, I thought, most of it, this is the employee drug and alcohol, so chaperones and things like that would not be,
What employee shop?
The employee.
it's
shop.
employee chaperones, so it's
Yeah,
only,
not- yeah, just-
do we have any control over non-employees who are involved with the students when it comes to this kind of thing?
If there are chaperoning, for example, like an overnight band trip or something like that, they do have to have their clearances. And any kind of misconduct like this would be an immediate cause to say you don't do this anymore.
Okay, okay.
Mission, vision, and goals.
Okay. Each year, we ask the board to adopt our mission, vision, and goals. Our mission, very simple, hasn't changed in several years. High-quality learning for all. That includes both the students and the adults in our school community. Our vision is to implement the 3 big ideas of a professional learning community with fidelity. And those 3 big ideas include a focus on learning, and that focus is through the development of a collaborative culture, and obviously a focus on results. And we would also like to demonstrate respect and belief in students through the promotion of effort-based learning. In other words, we tell students that they can learn, and we're not going to give up on them until they do learn. We're going to support the daylights out of them in any way they can. We're going to provide them with a rigorous curriculum. We expect them to try and work hard, and we, as a form of mutual accountability, pledge to them that we'll support them and help them in any way possible. And then our goals would be to eliminate failure, obviously to increase the number and percentage of students succeeding in our most rigorous curriculum, and that would be some of the foreign language courses that we talked about a few months ago, and our AP courses as well. And then naturally to improve student achievement and growth on statewide tests. Previously, we've been focusing a lot on achievement. How many students can we get up to the advanced and proficient level? With the advent of the Pennsylvania value-added assessment system now, we also are looking at student growth. So a student might be at the advanced level, but looking at their raw score, are they a little bit advanced or a lot advanced? So we're looking at how far we can move them along in a given year, even though they might reach a certain proficiency level. That's something we're trying to get our heads wrapped around, the growth versus achievement. And it's, once we think we understand it, then we read it again, and we know we'll get there. So we'll ask you to adopt those goals, mission, and vision for us next week.
Questions or comments on that? I have a question on our mission. We've been talking a lot tonight on safety, and we have a safe grant thing going on. Over the years, there's been talk of different bullying and stuff. Would it be a good thing to put in high quality learning, or I'm sorry, high quality and safe learning for all, or something to that effect to include? We want our kids to be safe and feel safe. Right. I mean, I hope it's not the case, but in some of these students' not feel safe at home, we want them to feel safe in school. That's something to maybe look at, including for our mission.
Yeah, well, we actually talked about that, Mike, and we thought that that was kind of included under the respect and belief in students through the effort-based learning and the supports we provide. And when we looked at those supports, we looked at Maslow had the hierarchy of learning, and until students feel safe and well-fed and all of those things, then reading, writing, and those things don't matter. So we felt that was kind of included in that statement.
Maybe just, yeah, go ahead, Mike. We're going to say something more, Mr. Ben. But kind of maybe to tie, related somewhat to that. Number one, I really affirmed the effort here on learning, achievement, results, and I think we've done very good on that. I think what I don't see here, and I think it is in our schools, but I think it could be more explicit, is the sort of the equivalent of what, when we did the athletic policy, we said winning and sportsmanship. And we used to have that turned around and said sportsmanship. Well, what's sportsmanship? It's character development. It's honor. It's hard work. It's being willing to say, I will sacrifice to reach this end, delayed gratification. It's all those virtues that we want in sports. And I think in the same way with, when I see, in part, what we're trying to educate is a very knowledgeable 12th grader when a person leaves here, but also a good citizen, a moral citizen who understands the basic virtues of Western culture and what makes, and if you think of around the world, societies that at least from my standpoint, are dysfunctional society. Basic character and moral development traits are missing, at least as we understand it, for a civil society. So I don't know whether it's moral development or character, responsibility, but and I say that in part just because of its own integrity. And it's not that we don't do it here. I know we do it. It's the character of the teachers. It's the character of our administrators. So I'm not at all. But just saying it, and in part, if I look at the students, of whom I would like to see in our schools, they're often from families with a very high moral and responsible. And I think they look for that in the schools. And I'm not at all saying that we don't have it here. I'm just saying let's make it very explicit. And I don't know. I'm not trying to put the language in it, but just saying. I'm only speaking for myself. I'd like to see something in here that would also speak to either character development in the same way that I just thought of it. Thought of this earlier when I looked at it in the week. But I walked in here, and you know what's in their hallways here? Integrity, respect, and you can name those. But those are moral character. Those are character characteristics, and really, regardless of our religious affiliation or regardless of our civic or our background, they're common to our culture, and we should honor them. And we do in school, but it's too long already. But just a thought.
Can I mention just something here? Just recently, we've been doing something at the college of that. We're talking about preparing our students to be good global citizens.
Yeah.
Bottom line, to be good citizens, and not even just Western, good global citizens. Understand the character, and this is, you're right, Levi. This is really good, and that may be within some of this that we're not seeing. Within your goals, or is that addressed any place? That whole citizenship?
It's addressed in the curriculum, but it's not obviously specifically spelled out here.
Okay. Well, I know he's talking about this, so I don't know.
The more words you put into this, the more that you end up trying to define it.
Right.
Again, good citizenship and integrity, then you have to define what those terms mean, because they don't mean the same thing to everyone. And again, granted, it would be nice to put them in here, but you might end up with a 12-page
Yeah,
statement
right,
as
simple.
to what you feel the school is. And again, you can't put everything into it, and the more you do, the more you end up having to define, or everyone making their own definition of what they believe it is, and then what good is the statement?
Right. Yeah, our previous statement, I'm trying to remember, before we became high quality learning for all, it was a dynamic educational environment, encouraging each student to achieve his or her maximum potential in a safe environment with good work ethic, and it went on and on. And we sat through the entire meeting to develop that, and it's one of the things we really tried to do is kind of prune it down a little bit, but all good points, all very good points.
Well, and high quality learning for all includes high quality learning about citizenship. Go ahead.
Right, go ahead.
But it includes that. Go ahead.
Somebody else.
Anyone else?
It's a great,
Well, I don't think, well, but I just to test here what Mr. Calero is saying. In some ways, we do give a key word to send a message of a direction. And a word like citizenship, character, responsibility, sure, those have different, but underlying that, there would be a common consensus that honesty is better than dishonesty, that safety is better than feeling in danger. And you don't need to go into detail on that.
Right.
That comes out. So I think any mission statement, sure, it only is meaningful if it is short and gives some direction, and this gives direction to the academic. But I think you can insert a word here or there that has a common ring to this community of what is the nature of education, and to me it is more than academic achievement. And I'm all for that, and I love the way Dr. Scott pushes that, and that should be primary here. But I think there's another element to it, and we define it every day, and teachers do and administrators do.
Anyone else have anything?
this is a really great topic. And Levi, you're absolutely right. Everybody's right that has spoken about there being so much more to success than the academic side. And this mission, vision, and goals, it changes every year because we are currently evolving. And if you look around the schools, all the way up through the high school, we are emphasizing character. And suddenly, in our learning, we kind of are presently hitting a roadblock because there's all kinds of research, and has been for years and years, about character development, how you develop that in schools. And so much of it has focused on those things that, Levi, you're talking about, the moral traits of character, like responsibility and integrity and honesty and things like that. And it's not that those things are not important, but there's some new research that is coming out of Stanford and Columbia University that is now assigning things that I never thought about before. It's called performance character. And those are the things where the effort-based learning comes in. It's the things like persistence, grit, determination, curiosity, optimism. And it's not that, obviously, we want honest kids with integrity. That's without question. But what the researchers are finding is that these moral character traits that we try to promote in schools have a empty quality to them because we really don't have any way of tying them to performance and success. And when they do the research, they find, and they've done a lot of the research in these charter schools, the KIPP schools, Knowledge is Power, that have been around for the last 15 years, taking really disadvantaged kids and really moving them forward. They find when you can work with those kinds of kids on the performance character, what is it to be gritty? What is it to be optimistic? Have curiosity, be determined, not give up on the first try. Those things not only lead to higher academic performance, regardless of the intelligence quotients of the kids, but also they track into their future. It leads into all kinds of things, lower divorce rates, higher employment, and better health. And so for us as an administrative group, our entire staff last year read Carol Dweck's book from Stanford, Mindset. And a lot of this effort-based learning is coming from that. And now we're running into this additional research dealing with performance character. And it really is it's having us stop in our tracks a little bit and reevaluate where we want to go. But we're absolutely on board with academic performance is only part, and I would say not the biggest part of success in life. And there's all kinds of research that shows that. It's those, but learning how to be successful. And that's why, forming those habits of being able to go to school and be on time and listen to a teacher and do repetitive, sometimes boring things compliantly, those can be very important in leading to your future success. And those obviously build citizenship. And we certainly recognize that and want to do much more to make that a part of who we are.
Sort of to piggyback on that, something I heard at Hershey last year during the conference is you can teach a student to be very successful, for an example, in business, to be very great at the business traits of running a bank or something like that. But if he doesn't have the morals and scruples, and while he's doing the business of running the bank, he's also robbing and stealing from the bank, it sort of defeats the purpose.
Right. You're going to fail.
We'll try to get you a few pieces of the literature that we've been looking at. I think it was Angela Duckworth has some of the stuff out that we've been reading, and maybe some Dweck, to kind of give you an idea of how we've woven that in. And I don't think we're opposed to adding a word here or there, to reflect this discussion at all.
I mean, if people from the community are not watching this meeting or hearing this or reading it in the Independent Observer or the newspapers, then they don't really know that it is being addressed, as you're saying, implemented into the school. Multi-purpose paper?
Yeah, we'll need you to approve the Joint Purchasing Consortium to advertise. We'll ask you to approve their advertising, and also to elect a representative to the Joint Purchasing Consortium, and that would be Mr. Marnell. And at this point in time, they're looking at multi-purpose paper, unleaded gasoline, and diesel fuel.
Any questions or comments on that? Citizens' comments? Seeing none, anything from the board before we adjourn for executive session? Seeing nothing, need a motion to adjourn for executive session for personnel?
No.
Just for personnel? Motion by Mrs. Rhodes, second? Second. Second by Mr. Calero. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.